Hi, today we're going to talk about lookup functions. In this spreadsheet right here, I've got a list of student scores and I want to assign letter grades to each student. I've got my grading criteria over here in cells E2 through F6. And the grading criteria says if you get between a 0 and less than 60, so 0 and 59 or even 0 and 59.999, anything below a 60 is going to be an F. If you get something between 60 and 69, anything between 60 and less than 70, that's a D, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to try to look up that student's letter grade using a lookup function. We talked about 3 lookup functions in class: HLOOKUP, VLOOKUP, and lookup. Now VLOOKUP will work because we can look up that student's score based on this first column out of our table. HLOOKUP requires that you're looking things up out of the first row. So in this case, HLOOKUP would not work for us. Lookup would work as well, but I'm going to choose VLOOKUP. And I like to click on this Insert Function button because there's a pop-up that helps you with the different arguments, and there's a nice description at the bottom here that'll talk about each argument that you're adding to the functions. The argument is what's in the parentheses when you're calling the function. So our lookup value is, what are we looking up? Well, we want to look up that student's grade. So if my student is Adams, his grade is in B2. So that's what I want to look up. The table array is, where do I want to look that up from? Well, I want to look it up from my grading criteria, which is in E2 all the way to F6. And in this case, someone assigned the name score list to that group of cells, and that's fine. We'll just leave score list as our table array. The column index is just a number, and we can see it's just a number over here. So the numbers are either going to be 1 or 2. 1 would mean we want to return something from that first column. 2 would mean we want to return something from the second column. Well, our letter grades are in the second column, so I'm going to put a 2 here. And then finally, the range lookup is optional. If we leave that out, then it'll come up with the closest match. In this case, we need to either leave this off or put true, because if someone has the grade of 55 or 63 or something that's not one of our scores listed here, we don't want to require an exact match. We want to go with whatever the closest match is. So I'll hit OK. So 36, it's not an exact match for 0, but it's definitely not 60 or above, so we're going to give that person an F. We can use the fill handle and pull this formula down, and it will fill in the VLOOKUP formula for all of our other students and give them the correct letter grade. Our next spreadsheet, let's say I've got 2 sections of the same class. A similar thing, we're going to do another VLOOKUP. And this time we know the lookup value is definitely going to be that student score in B2. But on this spreadsheet, I do not have a table with my grading criteria. So I can just click on that grades worksheet and go over and still select that grading criteria, cells E2 all the way to F6. And we had, remember, the nickname score list for those grades. So I'll just put a comma, and again I want to return the second column, that grade from the second column. And I'll hit enter. And this student receives an F, and I use the fill handle and I fill in the grades for the other students.